Hi, my name is Kerry Critchlow from RCR Recording Studios, and today we're going to be doing another production breakdown video. Now, today's song is a little odd as far as the theory is concerned, and I am by no means an expert when it comes to music theory, but based on my best understanding, the song is in the key of F, and in the key of F, these are your chords that you can use, and these are the notes within that chord that you can use. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe that I'm doing a substitution from the... so instead of playing a G minor, I believe it's a G major. So we're doing what's called a substitution, and that's just changing the minor into a major, borrowing from another key, if you will. But I could be wrong on this. It could be in a different key altogether. I'm not 100% sure. But from what I can understand, the basic chords for this song are playing a D minor to a C to a G major for part of the song. And then other parts of the song, we're doing a D minor to an F to a G major, and then a D minor to a B flat to a G major. In all cases, I believe it's a G major. And so the key is not necessarily set. So I'm either doing a substitution and making all the G minors in the key of F a G major, in which case sometimes there's a B natural instead of a B flat, because a G major is a G, B, a G, a B, and a D. A G minor is a G, a B flat, and a D. So anyways, it might be a weird song, but I believe that is kind of what's going on. I'm just going to go ahead and play it for you, and then we're going to go through the different tracks, kind of analyze what they're doing. This is a song I am calling Gibberish, because all of the vocals are samples, and they're just singing gibberish as far as I can tell. I made this song with a combination of pre-made loops and then putting in my own instrumentation as well. So it's kind of a combination of production techniques. So I'm using pre-made loops that other people made, and I'm just borrowing and putting in my song. And then I'm also putting in my own production using program MIDI and stuff like that. And so it's a combination of the two things. And this was kind of my attempt to incorporate more loops into my productions. This song is a few years old at this point. And so we're just going to be revisiting it. But this is an example of kind of something that you can put together. And and we'll go through it. So I'm just going to play it. The intention behind this song was kind of to create 3 different sort of unique sections and just keep the song interesting and moving as it goes. You can tell me if I've done a good job of that. But I'm just going to play the song start to finish, and then we're going to go through the individual tracks, see what's going on, and we'll go from there. But this will be a production breakdown video, and hopefully this will give you some more ideas on little tiny details and things that you can kind of incorporate into your own production moving forward. Also, before we get started, one more thing I do want to mention is I think we're kind of running to the end of what I might call the beginner's version of production. And so this particular series might be coming into an end, and I might do more focused videos on intermediate and advanced production techniques in standalone videos. So if you have any thoughts or ideas or anything you'd want to learn more about in that regard, let me know. But I think the music production basics for beginners video series is probably going to be coming to an end, and we're going to move on to some other more in-depth topics. And so we'll see what happens with that. But again, if you have anything that you want to learn more about, please just let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to create content that you guys are interested in. And with that, I'm just going to play this song through. Go ahead and listen for any kind of the details that you think are popping up. Active listening, you might call it. But listen for the kind of stuff that we've been talking about in the other videos. Little ear candy stuff, and like the things that kind of... the little details. And then we're going to go through the tracks and, see how well you did. And then we'll play the song one more time through at the end, with the new understanding. But here we go. This song is called Gibberish. Okay, so that was Gibberish. And then we're going to go through some of these tracks and kind of, see what's going on with them. But the idea behind the song was to kind of create almost 3 different songs in one, in a real sense. So the different styles and things, I was just kind of experimenting, playing around. But the first section is kind of like a chorusy sort of section. The second section is kind of more of like a dancey, upbeat, whatever. And the third section might even be more of like a hip hoppy kind of a section. And so, but that was kind of on purpose, is I wanted to make 3 kind of distinct vibes for the song and see if I could marry them together. So this song was really an experiment altogether. But we have different drum loops and different drum parts and loops for happening for each section of the song, different sounds, different things were going on. And that was my kind of attempt to keep things fresh and interesting as the song was moving through. So we'll just look at the first drum loop, and this is what's going on with it. Okay, and so this first section, they're the same thing going on. I think that this first section just has some EQ stuff that I put in there to kind of pull out some of the low end and maybe a little bit of the high end, but it's the same drum loop. I just processed this bit a little bit differently than this bit, but you can kind of hear what's going on with that. And this was a pre-made loop that I borrowed from somebody else and incorporated in the song. Now this is more of like a hi-hatty top loop, and this is like kind of more of your percussive elements that are going along with it. All right, and so kind of like just percussive sounds that are happening. They may not make a whole lot of sense, outside of the context of what's going on. And so, but yeah, when you add them together on top of each other, here's kind of what you get. Okay, so just some kind of fun little percussive loops. And then we have another percussive loop here happening as well that we're layering together. Okay, and so with all 3 of these loops going together, it sounds like this. Okay, and then just loops. So it's pretty simple. Like I said, these were all pre-made loops that I just borrowed and put into this production. And so there's nothing wrong with using these types of things. They're very common in modern productions. The key for making them work together is just to make sure they work together, right? So I'd have to go through a bunch of different loops, try them out, see if they work together. And I wanted that kind of like stacked sort of sound. So like on its own, this is fine. But then when we add, just adds a little bit of depth, a little bit of layer, and then right. And so the three, I spent some time to make sure that they work together. I went through a lot of different loops to find, finally settle upon what I'm using here. And so that can be a process that you go through, but like it's just kind of trial and error in a lot of ways. And I wanted it to sort of build a little bit. So you can see we're starting off with just one of them, then we add another one, and then I bring in the main drum loop, but like process a little bit differently. So that's kind of like feels further away or more subdued, more in the background, kind of cut out a little bit, maybe like telephony, maybe. And then we let it really hit hard when the hook kind of comes in earnest. The next thing we have here is just a crash, and this is just to make sure that when it comes in, it's a little bit more impactful. And these crashes kind of are happening throughout the song in various spots. We also added what is called, what I call an impact. And this is to help reinforce the cymbal crash a little bit and also give a little bit more of a wash going into the chorus. All right, and on its own, it just sounds like this. And that's just, like I said, to give the chorus a bit of a wash and a little bit more impact coming into there. Then we have the bass for the chorus section here. And the notes it's playing are a D, a C, and a G, and then maybe like possibly an E. I'm not 100% sure, but it's pretty simple. Just kind of hold long held out notes, and then we have layered that with an 808 bass, which is just adding in some low end to it. And then the two kind of are they're doing the exact same thing, same note, same everything. They're just duplicate MIDI parts of each other, but one is doing one sound, one's doing another sound. And then together they sound like this. Okay, very simple. And then when we have all of these parts going together, we have this. Okay. And again, if you're not listening through a pretty good set of speakers or headphones or whatever, you're probably not hearing this 808 bass very much because it's mostly low-end information that you're hearing. And so on its own, like you might not hear this at all if you're not on a good set of speakers. Okay. And it's just, holding down that low end. Then we have the kind of main keyboard part here. And these, again, are layered together. So both of these key parts are duplicates of each other. They're doing exactly the same thing. They're just two different sounds that I've layered together to make kind of a whole sound, if you will. And so this is the main sound that you're hearing. And then here's the other sound that you're hearing. And then together. And so the second sound I added in just to give a little bit more presence and bite, I guess. I'm not sure if that isn't the right word, but that more of that kind of click sound, clink, 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 just to make it a little bit more. I don't know. It was just adding a character that I liked. So like without it, it sounds a little bit dull, and then with it, it sounds a little crisper, a little cleaner, a little tighter. I don't know how to explain it. So you can really kind of, it brings out some of the detail in the sound. And then, so that becomes our kind of main keyboard part. And then all together with just those kind of things going on, we have, you know, this intro-y kind of section. You know, just the one percussion, and then the second percussion part hits. And just adding a little bit more texture to the percussion. Again, excuse me, maybe a little bit of ear candy, if you will. Just, you know, a little bit of extra something. And so those are kind of like the main parts that are going on. Then we have some pad sections here as well. And these are coming in kind of during like when the main chorus kind of drops here. And these are just to fill out the sound a little bit, add some texture, add some vibe, and just sort of give the rest of the stuff to fill in a little bit of the empty space, if you will. And it's doing something very similar to what the bass is doing. And then we have another pad. And again, it's just adding kind of some texture to the chorus, filling it out a little bit. And then the two of those together. And then with everything together here. Okay, pretty simple. And then I'm not sure what these are. These might actually just be duplicates. Yeah. So they're kind of, I'm not even sure why I did it this way. I could have just turned the pads up or down or whatever, but apparently these are just duplicates of what's going on here. And I don't know why I have them set up this way. It is a mystery. I'm just adding volume, apparently. I might have them processed slightly differently. But yeah. So there might be some processing differences between the two. I cannot remember. This was done years ago. It may have just been a mistake, and I have just, you know, added some volume to them. But when we have all the instrumentation in, this is what it sounds like. And I mean, the moment I muted those, it just kind of seemed to be lacking a little bit. And so I think these are really adding a lot. I'm going to do that one more time. Listen for when it's, you may not even kind of notice these things when they're in, but the moment I take them out, something just seems to go away and disappear and just kind of, it feels a little bit more flat. So here, we'll play it one more time. it just adds a little extra, something to that chorusy section, the drop section here, which I like. The next thing we're going to look at, and like I'm kind of going to have to go through these sections by section because each section kind of has its own sort of vibe and whatever going on. But we have these vocal loops, and I've picked 3 different vocal loops out. Actually, I'm just going to mute everything else for now so I don't have to keep worrying about these solos. But we got 3 different vocals, and I've got 1 panned hard left, 1 panned hard right, and then 1 in the middle. And I took these were vocal samples that somebody else created, and I just put them into my mix here, or my song. And then I chopped them up a little bit and kind of played with them a little bit to make them work for what I was trying to go for. But my thought process here was there was kind of a call and response. And so the left channel, on the left side of the headphones or speakers or whatever, you're going to hear kind of a call, and then on the right-hand side, you're going to hear a response. But here's what the call section is. Okay. So that's kind of what's going on there. And then on the right-hand side, this would be the response. Okay. And so there's a little bit different, but went together, we have the call and then the response. And then the last one in the middle is just kind of, I think it's this kind of thing, like this loop, but in the middle. And just process a little bit differently, which is leading into this chorus section. And so if we bring this back in. And then on so like these are a little thinned out on the verse, and then once the hook hits, they're kind of playing together. They're not doing so much the call and response thing as they are kind of just kind of continuously going. So right, and just kind of repeats over and over again, and then same with this. And then together. And then we add in a third vocal that's doing something a little different altogether. All right. And so these are some chops, and I can't remember if I chopped these up myself or not, but all together, here's what the vocals are doing. All right. And just having this kind of wash of gibberishness going on. And then all together, we have... Okay, and just kind of looping and looping and looping. And then about halfway through, we add in this little riser thing. And again, this is a sample or whatever that somebody else kind of created and I just used. And it stops. And that kind of comes in halfway through the chorus to just kind of give the second half of the chorus a little bit of lift, something to kind of like make it seem like it's building and building towards something. And then at the end of the chorus, we just drop it and we go back to this single little and so okay. And then here, the keys are still doing the same thing that they've been doing. But we're adding in different drum loop, different feel. And so it's interesting. Like the same part, the same kind of whatever is being played, but we're actually doing different chords and different drum loop, and it's giving it a completely different feel here. So here's our main loop here, and I think this is kind of a 4 to the floor kind of deal. Yeah, so just kind of doing a 4 to the floor thing here when this section comes in. And so we have everything kind of drop out. We have this little gibberish line here being said, and then it's just a different vibe, different feel with that 4 to the floor. Then we have some loops happening again that we're layering a little bit. So here's the one of the loops here. All right, and then when we add that in on top of what's going on with this. Just adding a little bit of some groove to that 4 to the floor, just making it a little bit more interesting. And then same thing here with this percussion loop. Okay, and then when we have all three of them going at the same time, we have this. And then we add that in. And again, the only thing that's being carried over from this first section so far are these keyboard parts. They're exactly the same as they were in this first section. Right, and then we pull out the kick every now and then to just keep it interesting, dynamically, just have some things going on, and that'll come into play more a little bit later here as well. We also have a different bass sound, I believe, doing a different part. So. And then these notes that the bass is playing is D, F, G. So in the first section, it was playing a D, C, G. Now it's playing a D, F, G. So it's similar, but just that little small change instead of going to an F instead of a C kind of just gives it a different vibe here, especially when you combine it with the keys. They're also very rhythmic. So like those are the only notes that are happening, but it's much more rhythmic. It's doing that dun 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 dun. dun 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 dun, dun kind of thing. And then again, we've added in an 808 just to add a little bit of the low end into this bass, since this was more kind of mid-range heavy. I just wanted something that was adding a little bit more of that low end. And again, you probably won't hear this unless you're on a good set of speakers, but it's copy pasted, doing the exact same thing, just adding in that low end kind of information. Okay, and so we're pulling out the kick in some spots, and then here we're pulling out the kick and the bass, and then when the bass comes back in, the kick stays out. And that's to make room for a build that's happening right here with this snare build. We'll just put that here for now. So here's what's happening kind of on the second half of the chorus. Again, this is another loop I borrowed. That's just kind of helping the track to sort of build momentum, but when we pull the kick out, we're then adding in the snare and having that kind of be the main thing. Again, just to keep things fresh and evolving. We don't want it to be so stagnant, otherwise it'll start to get boring pretty quickly, but we have this snare that kind of comes in to take over what the kick was doing. So if we kind of come back here a little bit. Okay, and so that does a nice job of kind of building up this second half of this verse section, or I might just call it the B section. So we have our A section, which is kind of the first little bit. Then we have a B section. It's about to go into another A section. Then there's a C section, and then back into the B section, or A section rather. And so that's kind of what's happening here. We also have one more drum loop that is... Or no, we don't. I'm looking at the wrong track. Sorry. And then we have another set of vocals. And so we have the A section vocals, and then we have the B section vocals. And it's a similar kind of thing that's going on here, sort of with the call and response, except that the call and response is a little bit different. And so we have the first vocal here, which is doing this. And again, we've got it panned hard left, and you're hearing a little bit of echoing on the right, sort of filling in the stereo spectrum a little bit, but that's what's happening on the left-hand side. And then panned hard right, we have this. And we got that chopped up a little bit to make sense. And then when together... And then those cut out, and then we have our third vocal, which is right in the middle, take over, and that's this. All right, and then when we have them all kind of in together, so we have a little bit of, we're letting this kind of track breathe a little bit before we introduce the vocals again. So we're coming out of this break, we kind of just have this 4 to the floor thing happening. Break. And so we pull the kick out for a little bit, again, to add just a little bit of dynamics and differences, and then when we have it come back in, we have the vocals start up. have the bass and the kick and percussion and stuff kind of cut out while the vocal and the keys are still happening. And then we bring back in our original thing here, and and this is when we're starting our build section here. Then we pull everything out, and we just have this one little vocal phrase that's kind of in the A section, and it's leading us back into our A section. And this is, I think, pretty much the exact same as our first A section. And so it's just allowing us to kind of transition back, and then we're out of our dancey section and then back into our sort of more chill groove. And then after our A section, we have another break, and then it's going to change up a little bit, and things are different. So we have the same percussive loop that's happening in our B section, where the 4 to the floor dancey kind of thing is. We're using those same loops here, but without the kick going the whole time, and then we're changing up what the keys are doing. So the keys here are playing a different chord progression, and this is a D minor, B flat, G major that's happening in this section here. Okay. And that's happening at the same time as this these little hi-hat percussion-y kind of loops are happening. And again, it's the same. I'm using some of the same elements transferred from different sections, but they have almost an entirely different feel when they're used in different contexts. And so it's okay to borrow from different sections, blah, blah, blah. But this is still going to feel a little bit different coming into here. Right, we have that section. It's doing the same thing here. Right, that same percussion loop is being used right here. If we were to mute our 4 to the floor. But it just has a different vibe when it's in this section. And then we have a different drum loop here, this kind of more hip-hop-y almost kind of thing. Okay, and so okay, and then they're out. And again, this is just to keep things moving, be different, kind of always changing, taking things in and out, just to keep the song evolving as it goes. And then we're adding in some sort of some bass parts here. This is what the bass does when it comes in. Again, that's doing a D to a B flat to a G. Those are the notes that bass is playing. And then we have other basses layered on top of it doing the same thing. So here's our other bass sound. And together. Okay. And then we have another bass as well. And those are all just kind of working together to add some vibe. And then when we bring everything back in, here's what we got. And then we have some crashes and some other things happening as this is going on. And then we have our next set of vocal loops happening. And again, these are different from the other sections. Okay. And then again, we're kind of going back to that call and response sort of thing. So that's panned left. This first part is panned left. Then we have this that's panned hard right. And then all together. And then we have our third vocal come in here. And then all together. And then that kind of section repeats twice. And then we have them both playing at the same time in this last little section here. And then it's over. And so that's all kind of happening all together there. And again, we're kind of like focusing on trying to like really sort of keep this different and interesting as it goes. And so it's a little bit more sparse here. It repeats again, and then it gets kind of busy and then busier until it drops. And then we're transitioning back into our A section again and over here. And then we're bringing in this other loop here. Okay. And then here we've got just a few little other sort of like impact sounds and risers and things like that. So, I mean, here's what these are doing. And they're just happening in various spots throughout the song in order to give some kind of impact and some vibe. We have another one that happens sometimes along with this. That's what that sounds like. All right. So sometimes it's happening with these. Sometimes it's happening. These are happening by themselves, and then these are some kind of swell sort of sounds here that are also happening in various spots, and that's just this. All right, so quick stuff. And you can see that they're happening in various spots as well throughout the song. And so all said and done, this is, I mean, pretty simple for the most part. And that's kind of what you hear. we just have our A section, and then we have a B section, which is that dancey section. We go back to our A section again. Then we go to our C section, which is kind of more like that, I don't know, maybe hip-hop-y sort of feel. And then we transition into our A section again, starting with this here. And what I've done is I've faded out these drums here using both a volume fade and also an EQ filter that is taking away the high end of the EQ spectrum. It's filtering out the high frequencies and just letting the low ones go until it's kind of completely out. And that's kind of what's happening here if we listen. And so that's just me filtering out the upper frequencies as it's being played. And that's transitioning into the, from this, I guess we said C section and back into our A section. So we have. So we're bringing back our original keys from our A section and B section, but we're leaving our C section keys and we're moving back into our original key sound. Or key progression or whatever, but we're keeping the drums from our C section and transitioning. And we also have our original muted drum kit here playing on top of it. Along with our other percussion loops here. And so the idea was to fade out of our C section and transition into our A section. And so we brought elements of our A section back in, but also kept a few of the elements from our C section and faded those out, and then kind of brought in the elements from our A section back in. And it's very similar to the beginning of our A section as far as like the arrangement and things like that. And so it was just sort of a way to fluidly transition between the two. So hopefully that's all making sense, and hopefully you're kind of getting an idea of what was going on. That's pretty much it. It's very simple. There's very kind of there's not a whole lot going on with this song. There's the main keyboard part, which is the same throughout most of the song until we get to our third section or our C section or whatever. And then it and then it turns back into our A section again, just like at the beginning in our second section, our B section. All of the choruses or A section stuff is using the same kind of sounds and all that kind of stuff. We're just using some different loops and a few different samples, some different vocals for the different sections. But it's just a lot of it is very. It may seem like it's a lot going on in the song and it's very complicated, but it's not. It's just a few elements that kind of change throughout the song that give everything kind of a little bit of a subtler, like a different vibe, or subtle nuances that make it different from each section to section. And then we have our anchor section, our A section, that kind of comes back to sort of be the main kind of pull of our song, and break up our B section and our C section a little bit. Most of, like I said, this was kind of a fun experiment for me, just trying to see if I could give the song a different vibe as it kind of went through the different sections, and then tie it all together with this kind of main A section, if you will. But there really isn't a whole lot going on. There's just a few different drum loops, a few different vocal loops that I went through, chopped up, cut up, and put in, and tried to make work with each other and within the context of the song, and just to add some fun variety to the song as it's going. a lot of the little details I probably overused in this particular instance, as far as like transition things. Like I'm using these reverse sweeps and impacts to cover most of the sections. I might have been able to be a little bit more creative in that regard, but I think all in all, it works, and you can kind of get an idea of how you can put this sort of thing together. And I did it again by using the combination of pre-made loops, and then programming in my own MIDI stuff as well to give it the vibe I wanted as we're going, and chopped up some of the samples as well, processed them in different ways in order to get them to sort of flow in from one to the next and kind of work. And so that's basically it. And hopefully you get an idea of why I've kind of made some of the decisions I've made. A lot of it was just trial and error. Do these work together? Yes. Awesome. If not, try something else until I find something that does. And then find ways to keep the song interesting as it's going, whether it's, cutting certain things out or adding certain things in, and finding ways to smoothly transition between the sections because they're a little bit disparate. The A section and the B section are completely two different vibes altogether. And then our C section is a completely different vibe as well. And we're trying to transition back into this A section every now and then. And so it's coming up with clever ideas on how to make that work, or ideas, whether they're clever or not, to make it work. And so this is the kind of thing you can do as well. And it's also kind of a different song structure than what you might, than what we've kind of been covering so far in this series. It starts with the A section, goes into a B section, then an A section, then a C section, and then ends on an A section. So the structure is very simple. There's 3 different parts, and then we just interlay one of the parts kind of as bookends, and then a break in the middle. But there's no wrong way to structure a song, and so I'm kind of bringing this up to show you that there's more than one way to structure a song, and you can kind of get the idea with that as well. So hopefully this is all making sense. You kind of get the idea of what's going on and how you can sort of incorporate some of these ideas into your own music. You can also chop things up, like these vocal loops. I chopped up a little bit to make them fit in. So like these are not the original loops that you're hearing. These are kind of, in some cases anyways, some of them might be just exactly as they were. But in some cases, I also sort of chopped them up and Frankensteined them together to make them work within the context of the song and do the kind of stuff that I wanted them to do. And so, yeah. We're going to play the song through one more time, and this time, really listen and see if you can kind of figure out the details of what's happening in this song, and, how we're moving from one section to another, how we're transitioning, how things kind of flow together, the different things that are grabbing your ear, the vocals, how they're working together in order to kind of like pull your attention, or the different things. So we'll listen back through one more time, and then we will call it for today. Okay. So hopefully you were able to kind of, the second time listening through, pick out a little bit more of the details, a little bit more of the things that were, changing and evolving as the song went, and starting to pick out some of the little subtleties and little nuances and details. And you kind of understand how the song was put together, why I made the decisions I did when I was going through this. Yeah, so I mean, like, this is a very simple song. There's not a lot to it. There's just kind of two sort of keyboard parts happening throughout the entire song. A couple of different bass notes that kind of change the vibe of the song as well. And the vocal chops that are kind of like doing the heavy lifting in a lot of cases. So I mean, like, it's a very simple song, but you can put it together in a way that feels maybe more complicated or more interesting than what's actually kind of going on under the hood. And you could even do more to this. There's other things you could add that could really bring this to life even more and make it pop more. Like I said, I did this several years ago, and you learn as you go. But I thought this would be another fun kind of example of how you can start putting together your own productions. And this one is using a lot of loops, and so you don't have to build your own loops. You can use other people's loops and incorporate them into your own ideas, or use them as kind of an inspiration to lay down your own ideas on top of them, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of thing, and you get some fun results. And so hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you've learned how to incorporate some of these concepts and ideas into your song, and how to bring your own productions to life. Again, we are kind of approaching the end of what I am going to be able to call like beginner production stuff. So this particular series may be ending, and I might go into a different type of series or a different type of video style where we're not covering like the beginner stuff or these production breakdowns, but we go in and we maybe like look at how to process things in fun ways, some fun production techniques, ways to add vibe or character or stuff like that, sound design kind of stuff, to a very real degree, and sort of like go into more detail about that kind of stuff. But I'm also open to other ideas. If you guys feel like you'd like to learn more about any kind of subject that I've covered or have not covered, or want to go into more detail about anything, please let me know in the comments. I will do my best to come up with video ideas around that, and hope to kind of show you at least my take on what those are. So with that, I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.